Hi, and welcome back to the last episode of Web3 Compass this year. This episode will be a wrap-up of 2022. I will be talking about the major crypto events, about the evolution of the podcast, but I will also be talking a little bit about my year and give you a little bit personal insights. So at the start of the year, Bitcoin traded around $47,000 and Ethereum was trading around $3,800. And a lot of these major bad events, I would say, didn't happen at this point of time. And maybe let's start with one major happening. It was that Meta was winding down the Diem association. So Diem, you might know them as Libra before. They wanted to implement a stablecoin payment system. And the Libra Association had a lot of big companies like PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, and Spotify on board, at least for a certain amount of time. And they got extreme pressure from regulators. And I think the whole case is extremely interesting because it shows how revolutionary blockchain technology can be and also how influential it can be. And of course, this is not one-sided. As a citizen, you also have to ask yourself if you want, for example, Meta or another private company to have a very strong influence on the global payment systems, or do you want this influence to be, for example, at your central bank, at your country? And I just think it's worth our own podcast episode. But the happening here was basically that the Diem Association was wound down and the assets were sold to Silvergate Capital. And it marked basically the end of, let's say, a very, very interesting project. In February this year, Laura Shin released an article on Forbes that the hacker of the DAO, or also known as Genesis DAO, is most likely the Austrian programmer Tobi Hoeneß. If you're interested in this, I did 2 podcast episodes about it. The first one about the hack of the DAO, maybe from a technical perspective. And then I also went into the article of Laura Shin and talked about if Tobi Hoeneß is the hacker of the DAO and my opinion on this case. Yeah, I also finished my bachelor studies this year and I studied business administration. For those of you who don't know, I focus on technology, innovation, and digital business. So I also had some programming courses there. And yeah, I was very happy and excited to start my working life. My studies were not so great for me. I always felt a little bit it was like an ivory tower where they teach all this, let's say, this theoretic knowledge, but I had little possibilities to implement it. Of course, I had nearly, I would say, all the time working jobs at my studies, in a marketing agency, at a startup, or in investment banking. I did like an internship there and I could then implement my knowledge. But I always had the feeling that, how do you say it, business or all the stuff is more a thing of, is all more like a thing of the practice and not so much about the theory. And there were, of course, also outdated lectures. And how do you say it? Digital education was not really there yet. I had a lot of friends leaving or stopping their studies and moving to other paths. And yeah, I think a lot of things could have been done better. And yeah, I'm just very happy that I started into the working life. I started a junior sales role at Cloudflare, which I really like. And of course, I also have to say it here, all opinions on the podcast are my own and only my own. But I like that I work for a tech company and to get a lot of technical insights. But I also think one strength of mine is communication and also sales and marketing. And there I'm learning a lot of new skills. And I think these skills will be very valuable in the future. But of course, not everything was great in 2022. One tragic event was that Russia was invading Ukraine. And also for crypto, it was a major event because crypto played a role in this war. And one use case of crypto here was, for example, Ukrainians raising money and using cryptocurrencies in doing so. And at the beginning of the year that they raised over $100 million. But I also found an interesting article from the Washington Post, which I will link in the show notes. And they are the chief scientists and co-founder of Elliptic, which is a blockchain intelligence company. He's called Tom Robinson. He stated that, and I cite now, cryptocurrency mining provides a way for Russia to monetize its oil and gas reserves on the global market, even if it isn't able to physically export them. And I thought this is a very interesting point, because I have not thought about it before, that they could, for example, use the energy to mine Bitcoin. And in the article, there is another interesting point, and with interesting, I don't say it's a good point, but just like from, how do you say it, from a point of perspective, I think it's interesting because the article stated that crypto is not really needed by oligarchs to avoid sanctions, because they have very, and I cite now here, they said well-heeled accountants and bankers around the globe. And yeah, I think this is very interesting to read, because if you think about the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers, it shows that something with the current financial system is not right. And I did also one podcast episode where I talked about the book of Scott Galloway. And I think it was about statistics about America. And it also talked about how many US companies have their earnings or their profits in more or less offshore tax havens, or I don't know what would be the right term for this. But yeah, I think we have here a big problem, and I think taxation might be a topic for a whole episode, because I think there is a clear trend that a lot of very, very rich people are avoiding the current tax system, and somebody else has to pay the taxes. And even though if you are saying, okay, the taxes are too high, I think there must be a societal solution to come up with a system which enables like a state which also takes care of the weak, and not of the lazy, but of the weak, and also gives people the possibility that hard work will be rewarded. And this is very political, but yeah, without going too deep into this topic, I'm not very satisfied with the current situation. In February and March 2022, I did my first more or less official blockchain education. I did like a 6-week online course from MIT, which was called Blockchain Technologies, Business Innovation and Application. And I got a discount, and with the discount I paid around 2,600 euros, which is quite a lot of money. And I thought it's like an investment in my future. I have to say the content was okay, so some of it was outdated. And I think if you just want to have the content, there are better possibilities to get with a lot less money, let's say 500 euro. You can buy a lot of books and a lot of other courses on Udemy where you get probably a broader range of more and also deeper knowledge. But what I have to say, the network was great. They had like an internal forum with entrepreneurs and also people working in companies from all over the globe. And when I started the course, I was 21 years old, and I don't normally have the possibility to talk with C-level executives or other leading people from the US or from Asia. And basically you could say that the price tag was to buy you in to access these people. And I had like a group where we talked regularly about these topics. Also have to say there's no guarantee that you get out good connections from this course. You have to take the matter a little bit in your own hand. And yeah, there was also like the weekly pressure to hand in assignments, which I need, to be honest, because with all the stuff going around me, and I have like a long list of things I want to do. I need it a little bit. And however, there's of course a premium price tag. It might be beneficial for your career, but if you are only looking for content, there are definitely better options. And for example, one course, which is completely for free, it is from 2018. It is from MIT, the open course, where I think the YouTube channel is called, and there Gary Gensler, he's now the head of the SEC. He talks about blockchain and money. If you just put in Gary Gensler and blockchain, you will find the course on YouTube. And yeah, just because some people ask me about my thoughts of the course. In March 2022, there was a large bridge hack, and the Ronin bridge was hacked. The Ronin network was a sidechain for Axie Infinity, which is the biggest Web3 game, or was the biggest Web3 game measured in market capitalization. I said was, they are probably still the biggest game, but I didn't have verified this fact yet. And at the time, the amount hacked was $600 million because it was amount in crypto which was stolen. And according to the FBI, the North Korean hacking group Lazarus was behind the hack. And there were also other bridge hacks, and some of the the biggest hacks included the Solana wormhole hack with over $300 million, the Nomad bridge hack with I think around $200 million, and the Harmony Horizon bridge hack. I think it was like around $100 million stolen in crypto. And all this led me to the conclusion to have a healthy skepticism about crypto bridges, because crypto bridges, they are not blockchains, they are connecting different blockchains. And of course, if you can hack it, there's a big bounty. I mean, $100 million or $200 million. And if there's like a hacker group who was successful once, they of course have a high incentive to do it all again. And also talking about, for example, Axie Infinity and Web3 gaming, one conclusion of this year for myself was also that I have like a strong skepticism about a lot of NFT projects and DeFi games. And I did, I think, an episode also reflecting on the NFT hype. A lot of the projects are just under-delivering. A lot of the founders are just cashing out and then doing nothing. DeFi games are often just Ponzi's. They have no business model. I mean, you can't pay out money without generating revenue in some way. And also a problem, there are no consequences because there is no regulatory framework, and people are sitting in some countries where it will be very hard to to prosecute them, and especially as an individual. And yeah, I think some projects will survive. And talking about some NFTs, I think some of them are also now part of pop culture. So I think some of them have influence, or they definitely had influence for our culture. Just having Snoop Dogg, I think making a song about the metaverse and the sandbox it's just part of the culture. So I don't think every NFT project is not good. I'm also a fan of some, but the majority of projects, probably speaking 99.9% or even more, is trash. So that's my opinion for now. And also with games. So I think it was not this year, but at the end of last year, I was very hyped about a lot of Web3 games. But yeah, a lot of them are just bad. Some of them are also, I would say, a form of online gambling, just in, in the framework of a video game, but where you have, for example, virtual horse races and other stuff. So I'm quite skeptical. Talking about the next point, in March of this year, I officially launched my podcast. It was first called IT Innovations Ideas, and later I rebranded it to Web3 Compass, because I just noticed that I did much more research on Web3. I was very intrigued by the whole topic. There were a lot of things going on. Nearly every other week or every week there was like a major happening, and it kept my focus away from a lot of these other topics. And I also automatically saw some Web3 founders and asked them if they want to come to the podcast. Yeah, and I had some great guests. My first guest in the new format was Professor Sandner, and I talked with him about blockchain education, NFTs, and also regulatory frameworks. We also talked about the differences between some countries, for example, about Malta, who was at a certain point of time a hub for blockchain technology or for blockchain startups. Then I had Peer Chemist on my show. He talked about Peercoin and also the possibility of a potential Bitcoin fork when the 21 million Bitcoins are mined. And also these fundamentals, which I think are often not very clear. And it was great to have really a technician on the show or an engineer on the show who had really a technical understanding to get this information. I also had Dr. Eisenhofer as a guest, who is the CEO of Financial.com. And we talked about the founding of his startup. We also talked about financial markets and inflation. And now it's December. I think also in 2021, I did like an NFT, which I called Inflation is Coming or something like that. And yeah, inflation right now is high. Prices of food are especially high. Yesterday I was grocery shopping, looking at the grocery bill. I think I'm mad. So it's like incredibly high prices for a lot of, especially healthy goods like vegetables and stuff. Yeah, let's see where this will go. Then I had Dennis as a guest. We talked about the Terra Luna disaster. I also did some research there. Like the CEO, Do Kwon was, according to the South Korean prosecutors last in Serbia. And some sources also said that he sold their Bitcoin. And also very crazy that a lot of these criminals are not really prosecuted and are on the run. The same thing with one of the Wirecard executives who is, according to some sources in Russia. I think this is also, of course, this is not good. I think it's crazy that these people are not being prosecuted and there have to be consequences. The same, I will also say it later about FTX. Then I talked with Dennis also about Web5, with the decentralized web platform of a subsidiary of Block, which is run by Jack Dorsey. I had Dr. Glass on my show, or Dr. Glass in German, who is the founder of Cryptomatter, and this is a professional crypto analysis tool, and also for professional investors or for individuals who want to have, how do you say it, like a professional crypto portfolio, or from traditional finance or crypto portfolio based on criteria from traditional finance. Then I had Lukas Pfeiffer as a guest. He's the founder of Crypto Oxygen. We talked about crypto mining, consolidation in the market, and also about improvements in regulations with miners moving from China to the US. I did a podcast episode about virtual reality, artificial reality, not artificial reality, augmented reality, and the MetaQuest 2. And I have to be honest, I have it right here next to me. The MetaQuest 2 is hardly used anymore. And a reason for this is a problem of space. I would say I have not like a small room, or where I live, I have some room. But if you want to box, for example, on the MetaQuest 2, or if you want to do some of these activities, you need quite a lot of space. And it's it sounds a little bit like I'm very lazy, but it's like a barrier to move around stuff in your room to put on then your Meta Quest, which is also oftentimes you have to load it before because how do you say it? The battery is always low, or so you have to load it before because it always is run out of battery when you use it when you do not use it for some days. And yeah, it's just this flexibility, I think, which is it's keeping me from using it regularly. And I think it has to be a lighter concept, maybe also with augmented reality, where you can do a lot of stuff there. And if you have like really a lighter VR glasses, where you can do some activities also, where you play some games where you don't sweat. Because this was also a thing. I really liked it because it was always sport, and it was like some way to, how do you say it, gamify sport. And I really liked it also at the Wii with Wii Sports, and I love the concept. But then you have to move around maybe your chair and stuff in your room, and then you have to put on some sport clothes, and after playing you have to shower, or at least the games I played, which were fun for me, I had to shower after this. This was maybe so my personal experience. Also, coming to the next topic, I had Alexander on my show. We talked about soulbound tokens, which might play a central role in the next bull market. We talked about the shutdown of Tornado Cash, or at least about that one of the suspected developers was arrested. It is a very controversial topic, and I also talked about it with Niall Prelas. And our main topic was probably peer-to-peer networks, freedom, and DeFi. We talked about the tokenization of assets, also digital assets and private equity. Very interesting. And talking about DeFi, I was at the Crypto Assets Conference in Frankfurt. It was my first crypto conference, and it was probably not the classic crypto conference where you have a lot of crypto pros and developers there. I would say the majority of the people there were like bankers, lawyers, consultants, and it was more formal. I think I was one of the only people with a hoodie there. But still a very great conference. If you're interested in my experience there, I also did like an extra episode about it. And the major learning for myself was that major banks are adapting blockchain technology. Maybe not Ethereum and Bitcoin. Maybe they are skeptical about this, but they are adapting ledger technology. And for example, JP Morgan has Onyx, and I also want to do more research on that one. I also want to do more research on Ripple, because some people I talked to said it's a witch hunt. And yeah, very controversial statement right now for my little knowledge. But I want to do more research on the happenings there. And I was also at another conference for Cloudflare. I was at Hub Berlin, and I talked with someone from a major tech company about their blockchain-based supply chain solution. And as far as I understood it, he led the project, and he said, "Yeah, blockchain is great, but it was not really necessary." And at the end of this year, there was a big announcement that Maersk and IBM shut down their supply chain project called TradeLens. And I want to do more research, and I also plan to make a podcast episode somewhere in the future talking about blockchain technologies in the industry and the adoption rate. And I would also be interested to have somebody on the show to talk about these use cases and why they also fail, because I think oftentimes you have a survivorship bias, and we talk about all the great use cases of blockchain technology, but I do not see so much implementation in the industry. And I would like to understand, of course, more the reasons why this is the case. And of course, one reason will be, and this is my hypothesis right now, is that we have existing architecture which is very good. So cloud infrastructure, what, for example, AWS, also Cloudflare, Google, with their Google Cloud platform, Microsoft Azure, what they have built, is amazing, because it is very sophisticated and it's not easy to replace these solutions. Talking about the next happening is it's the DeFi Talents program. I also did a special episode about it. I'm still on the program. I'm still learning. It's also one incentive for me to create even better podcast episodes. I also have to hand in there on a bi-weekly basis assignments, which also helps me to keep going. Because, as I said it before, looking at my Udemy courses, I think it's always easy to start something, but thing I struggle the most is consistency. And these, how do you say it? These mandatory assignments help me to be consistent. And then we also had the Ethereum merge in September. This was a successful event, and also coming with some new features. And at the end of the year, we had the FTX disaster. I did a debriefing episode about this. If you're interested in it, check it out. There's still a lot going on. What I think is very suspicious is the media coverage of the whole disaster. So I think mainstream media is way too nice to Sam Bankman-Fried. And I think they are so nice that it smells like something is wrong. So I would say I'm not somebody running around. In Germany, we have this special word. One second. We say it to them like alu head, like aluminium head, for all these conspiracy theorists. But with all this stuff going on, I think there's a natural explanation. For example, that he donated money to certain people who are influential, and on the other hand, they try to protect him or look that he is not looking too bad. And maybe he also has knowledge on some of these people. I don't know the case. It's all pure speculation, but I think it's very strange how nice they are to him. It might be also like, what do you say it, that they want to frame it against Binance and against CC. And he is definitely, in my opinion, also not innocent. And he also plays his role in the whole disaster. But yeah, let's see how the next year turns out. The Ethereum price, I looked it up today, was trading around $1,200. The Bitcoin price around $16,500. And I think, and this is now my personal opinion, no financial advice, it is impressive that the price is still this high. So I hope to buy some Ethereum around $500 or under $500. But I think this will probably need some time. And also very interesting, even though they dropped dramatically, of course, I think the price is still very high and also higher than the last drop. And of course, there were a lot of other events this year, probably also a lot of events I have not heard of. But yeah, this was a little bit my personal wrap up, and maybe what has this year done with me personally. So I got more skeptical about the whole scene, or however you want to call it. I was very hyped in 2021. And then I got more and more based. It was a little bit really like the Gartner hype cycle. Then I might have gotten too skeptical, and now it pendles in at a stage of reality where I say, okay, I can see this use case about this technology, and I can see that use case, or I can see this use case. And yeah, at the same time, and this is also no financial advice, I'm thinking about buying 2 NFTs. One is from the Grades collection of Beltraki, and the other one is called Hash Masks, and they cost around $400 each. I like both projects. I think, in my opinion, they have also like cultural impact, but I also have to say I have a passion for art. And how do you say it? I have the vision that if I lose the money, I would of course not be happy. It would not be okay, but it would be like something where I say, okay, I take the money for this purpose and I like it, and I wouldn't buy it anymore or I would not buy it if I didn't like the project. And maybe also as a disclaimer, I'm writing with someone from these two projects. I think they are linked to each other. And I want to have him on my podcast to talk with him about it. I also own one of the grades, so I also own one NFT from the collection. So just for potential conflict of interest, I want to say this, but yeah, these are my thoughts. I'm also thinking about buying some Ethereum in tranches. And I also have to say I want to buy more like ETFs, just MSCI World, where I buy a big basket of stocks and have, let's say, a speculative part of my portfolio in cryptocurrencies, and have it more or less a little bit traditional. And I think also from my perspective, Ethereum is for me probably the most interesting cryptocurrency because of the amount of developers they have. Of course, they have a certain market cap, and they will probably not make like a 100x or something, but I think there's still a lot of potential in the cryptocurrency. And a lot of these other alternative coins, they also overpromised. And some coins, one of them also called Harmony, or some of them know it as One. I was very interested in this project, and then I also saw that there was like a major hack. They have like strong struggles and stuff. And just looking at the whole thing for around maybe 1.5 years, there were so many coins which promised the world and seemed so promising, and they are now trading at cents. My podcast, maybe also the year from a podcast perspective, the podcast has around 1,200 downloads, which are a little bit more than 30 downloads per episode, but I also have to say it varied strongly. And the episode with Peer Chemist, for example, had by far the most downloads, which was for me quite surprising. But it was, in my opinion, very interesting from a thematic point of view. And I have around 30 core listeners who not always listen to the episode when it comes out, but over time. And yeah, I put a lot of work in the podcast. And I thought, I also have to be honest, I thought there will be faster growth, because if I compare it to YouTube, and as a teenager, I did some YouTube projects also where I played some MMORPGs or other online games, and I even didn't comment it. I just had the gameplay, and I showed how I do some things, and I also have to say I was probably one of the better players in this game. But there was it. I had one video with a niche roleplay game, so it was not World of Warcraft. It was like a niche, massive multiplayer online roleplay game, which had like 10,000 views. And of course, when you now start a podcast and you see you're putting a lot of work and the number of listeners is not growing, of course, you're asking yourself, what can you do better? But I also have to say it, there's always a comparison to YouTube. And I also started to upload now my podcast to YouTube, because it's very hard to get organic growth with the podcast. Also having guests at the podcast, it didn't really help to grow the audience. But there are some things, and I also really have to say it, which motivate me to keep going. And it is when someone of you messages me, or when I see that some people are, as I said, these 30 people, you can see I think you have like a software where it plays out, or where it pushes out the podcast in all these different streamers like Spotify, Apple Podcasts and stuff. And I think based on the IP address of the listeners, when you stream the podcast, I can see where someone is based. And so I see like the city. I think it's a little bit strange, of course, because I'm also about privacy, but of course you could also use a VPN or something like that. And I also don't publish this information, of course. But I see that the same people are listening to my podcast. And when I just think that in, I think 2020 or 2021, I was running like a student association. It was like called Münchner Börsensiegel, which was like a finance club for students, where we connected people from, students from people from the financial industry. And we also had like an education program where they could do like how do you say it? More or less like a small stock market license for lectures. And we had there also maybe, let's say we had a speaker and 20 people showed up or 30 people showed up. And when I just imagine that these 30 people from the Student Finance Association are the listeners of my podcast, and you're one listener who is right now at this point at the podcast at minute 40 and who still keeps listening to me, and who's not like only listens to the first 5 minutes. These are the people which help me to keep going. And it are also the conversations I had through the podcast and the people I met. So I'm always very open. You can always chat with me via Discord, or also via LinkedIn. Probably also soon via Twitter. And also the possibility which the podcast enabled me to visit the Crypto Assets Conference as a journalist was great, and also the personal growth. So I have here around 250 pages in GoodNotes, which is like here my handwritten tool for Apple, which I use to do some research, to prepare the interviews, to prepare my own episodes. It's like a small book, which I did, and these are the things which keep me going. And the plan is also to continue the podcast in the next year. I want to intensify the work I put in. I want to be even better. I want to get more knowledge. I want to be more professional. I also want to do it in an entertaining format, without losing my credibility. I always try to be as honest as possible and as transparent as possible. I also do the best I can for the research. Also, maybe I will switch to a video podcast format, also for a marketing perspective, because I could use these short snippets maybe for social media channels. Yeah, in the end, at this point, I just want to say a big thank you for everybody who is tuning in to every episode and who is supporting me right now at this stage and the project, because you are basically the people who help me growing this project bigger. And if you're tuning in on a regular basis, and maybe even if you're also liking the podcast, giving me like a good review, or jumping to YouTube and liking the new episodes, you're the ones who are like the fuel to my engine to keep going. And yeah, just a very big thank you. I also hope you had a great 2022. I'm very interested what will happen next year, also where my personal journey will take me, what the next stages are, what I will do as education after the DeFi Talents program. I also have some courses on my list, but I will just inform you. And yeah, have a great day. Slide greatly into the next year, and we hear each other in 2023. So ciao.